A day in the life of a work package. It's just to give you an idea of what it's like at Epps Aviation on a daily basis of us doing one of the many things that we do at Epps, and I'll go over step by step in a moment. Pardon me if I'm a little bit nervous, I'm not used to public speaking, so bear with me. I'll try to get better as I relax. Now a little bit about me. I've been with Epps Aviation since November of 2006. I was brought on to Epps when they purchased the Quantum software, and they wanted somebody to help them implement it, and so I came on board to help them do that and to train their employees, and I still do that today. New employees that come on, they come to me for questions about how to use Quantum and to get them started in different processes. I must say, working at Epps is it's an amazing thing to do. I work with the founder of Epps, Mr. Pat Epps. The company has been around for 50 years. We just celebrated that this year. And working with Mr. Epps is like working with a piece of living history. His accomplishments are just incredible, and I wanted to just go over a few because I can't say enough good things about this company and this man, and I thought it was important that we cite a few of his accomplishments. Biggest thing to me is the fact that he led an 11-year quest to recover the lost squadron. And in 1992, he succeeded in retrieving the World War II Lockheed P-38 Lightning buried beneath 265 feet of ice in Greenland. And I think that's pretty amazing. He wanted to make sure that those planes were recovered. In June of 1994, Mr. Epps piloted a friend's DC-3 to France, and then he flew over Normandy, and veteran World War II paratroopers jumped to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the D-Day landings. In January 2011, he received the Harrison Ford Aviation Legacy Award. He was also inducted to the Georgia Aviation Hall of Fame that same year. He's also an acrobatic pilot, and he participates in many air shows. So like I said, he's kind of an incredible guy, so it makes it a really neat family-owned company to work for. And I just wanted to share that with you. Now about Epps itself and what we do. As you can see on the screen here, we've been in business since 1965. We are the only independent FBO at DeKalb Peachtree Airport. There's a few small ones around, but we by and large are there and have been for the last 50 years. We offer all kinds of services, including fueling, charter, aircraft sales and management, piston, turbine, avionics maintenance. We do NDT, non-destructive testing of parts, and tool calibration. So it's kind of like having 7 or 8 little companies all in one. We kind of control those. In this session, I'm going to share with you how we go about our maintenance, what's involved, why do you open a work package, what are you doing when you do that. And as I was preparing this presentation, one thing that came to mind to me is that we at Epps, we have really taken advantage of some of the customization that you can do with the software. And so what I'm really going to highlight today is how you can Quantum out of the box and what it looks like, and what we as a company have done to make it more streamlined and more useful to our company. I'm also going to look at some of the customized forms that we've done. Same thing. Again, there's a lot of out-of-box reports in Quantum, but there's also an amazing amount of customization that you can do, and I want to share some of those forms that we are using and how they help us in getting our day-to-day job done. And I'm going to mention how we use barcode scanning in our company and how we are thinking about using it in the future but have not implemented it yet, and I think I'm going to attend one of those sessions so I can get some more information on that myself. Okay, we're going to cover how we open a work package, comparing the custom screens, how we add parts and print pick tickets, and how our technicians out on the floor, how much they are hands-on in doing that. I'm going to show you how you close off and sign off a job card, not so much how, but what we do to get that accomplished. And creating an invoice and looking at our customized invoice form, and following all the way through to the general ledger and the batch that's created when you post an invoice, and being able to verify those codes. And how that's all started, what do you do? Well, how do we start a work package? Well, a customer calls us. They want maintenance on the aircraft. Maybe it's an annual, maybe it's a 50-hour, 100-hour inspection, whatever it might be. Maybe they've just got a piece of equipment that's just not working, and they need help. So they want to have us fix their airplane for them. So they will talk to a service manager, and we have 3 departments at Epps. We have avionics, turbine, and piston, and each of those departments has their own service manager. So if it's an avionics issue, they talk to our avionics service manager, turbine, piston, that would determine that. So the first thing they do is they talk with that service manager, and he takes down that critical bit of information, starting with the tail number. Because if you guys have worked with work packages, you know the tail number is the starting point for the work package, whereas with work orders, it's the part number. You're working with a part, so it kind of helps you to choose which package has more value to you. And in the maintenance world for us, it most certainly is the work package that we want to do and focusing on that tail number. And linked with that tail number is the customer that's associated with it. And the manager will take that critical information, and he'll take down all the squawks or the job cards, as we like to call them, so that we can create those in Quantum and be able to use them out on the floor. First thing he does is he opens up the work package, and I hope you guys can see this. What I've done is on the left-hand side is the original as it comes out of the box in Quantum, and on the right is the Epps customized screen. The screen editor is where we use that function. It's really hard for me to see the screen up here. But what we have done is we hid fields that we don't use. And I think you'll find, I don't know if you're using this at your company, but I think you'll find that if you do, it'll make just data entry much faster and much more streamlined, and your end users will love you for it. So if you have someone in your organization that can handle the screen editing, it's really handy to have. And what we've also done with our screen is, you'll see there's red fields. Quantum has red fields which are required, but we've added a few because we wanted other things to be required of our end users and our technicians out on the floor to make sure that they get that information. So we have those in red. Let's see. Next. Now, we talked about adding job cards or squawks or complaints or issues, however you refer to it. We usually say squawks, it's easier, but in Quantum, it's the job card. Now, here is an area where we have highly customized the screen. I think if you look on the left and see all the incredible amount of information that Quantum will allow you to capture if you need it. But I find an organization of our size, we just found that was just too much information, and the technicians out on the floor would look at it and go, I don't have time to fill out all this stuff. So one of the first things we did when we installed Quantum was to look at what was crucial to us and really streamline that. And this is one of those areas where that was done, and as you can see, really, there's not so much there. The other thing you can do is we've added some fields. Not only can you hide stuff, but you can also add features. The airworthy box that we have on the Epps side of the custom screen, how this was used is maybe a customer's coming in for a 100-hour, and we go through and we do all the requirements of that 100-hour, but at the same time, we find different things that might be wrong during that inspection. And what we'll do is we will flag those as being airworthy or non-airworthy and present a quote to the customer, and they can choose. If it's a non-airworthy item, they might not want to have it fixed at that time and might want to defer it to a later time. And so that's where that airworthy flag comes in. We have a report that'll flag on that and let them know that the item that is being squawked is airworthy. So that's a field that we added. It's one of those places where you can customize Quantum to meet your needs with the customer. Now, another area I want to point out is the ATA position reference and how we use that. And it's, I think I've got a pointer here. There it is, the little ATA position reference, if you can see that. We use that to help us identify what our squawks mean, and each one is numbered. I mean, you can have them just default 1, 2, 3, 4, but we saw a need at the beginning to have the squawk numbers tell us something when we were looking at it. So if we're looking at one of our work packages and the squawk is in the 1000s, that to us means it's airframe. If it's 2000s, it's number 1 engine. If it's 3000, it's the number 2 engine. If it's 4,000, we've got research people. We have a research library that researches service bulletins, air directives, that kind of stuff. And if there's something that needs to be done, they will add their own squawks to the work package, and those will all be 4,000s. And that's so we know that came from our research department, and our customers know that we're checking to make sure their plane is where it should be in terms of having all of its work done. 5,000s we reserve for avionics work, so that we'll know that an avionics squawk has been added. 7, we use NDT, and 9,000 if it's related to a propeller. There's others that you could use if you wanted to, and again, you can user define this. So the point I want to hit home the most is, again, highly customizable use it to help your company conduct its business. Now, another area I want to point out here, and I'm going to refer back to it a little bit later with a customized form, but there's a little area, the Work Center. Now, we use the Work Center for just a single function. I know it can be used in many ways, but for us at EPS, the biggest thing that we use this for is to identify the squawk as being warranty. We do an extraordinary amount of warranty work at EPS. We're Pilatus Service Center, Cessna, a lot of different aircraft, and we do warranty work. And so it's very important that we know that this particular squawk might have warranty work on it that we're going to later need to file a claim. And that box being labeled warranty tells us that. Later it'll show up in reviews and recaps and on the actual customer invoice itself and provide a little bit of information. So I want to make sure I point that out, and I will show you later where that Work Center comes in handy for helping us get our job done and making sure our warranty claims are filed. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, that was my position reference. See, I got a little ahead of myself. Here we go. Again, that Work Center area, that's where we do the warranty information, and we have a person on staff who brings up each work package each morning that's been opened. He reviews it several times throughout the day, and he will check to see if the aircraft is warranty itself. And so that if an aircraft itself is under warranty, he will go in and just code all the squawks that way, because 90% of the work that's being done on this aircraft is going to be covered under warranty. And that's one of the things that he does, and that will also help him at the end to be able to pull warranty off the aircraft. Now, we use barcoding at EPS, as I mentioned, for recording of labor. And how we do that is once all the squawks are done, we print out a little traveler, as we call it, and it'll have the barcode for all of our technicians out on the floor. They're printed out. They'll have a clipboard, and it's got all the job cards and the barcodes for that job out there. So when they're out working, they can scan onto a particular job card, do the work that's necessary, and then basically just scan on to the next card. One thing you don't have to do is scan off of a card unless maybe you're leaving for lunch or going somewhere that you need to end that job and you're not continuing it. Because what will happen is if you scan on to the next job card, it automatically scans you off the first one. So it's very handy for keeping up with your labor and your time accurately. We also have the ability to be able to enter our labor manually. And why this would come in handy, some of our technicians may be out on the ramp somewhere doing work and they're not near where a scanner would be appropriate to use. So they will note their time right on the little traveler that they have when they started and when they ended. Then when they come back into the office, they'll sit down at a computer. There's various ones available throughout hangars for them, and they will record their time that they put on this aircraft. And again, you'll notice the red fields, the required stuff. There is a start and end time that you could use if you want to record actual start and end time, but we have found, our experience has shown that basically just putting in total hours and billable hours is all that's needed in that area. Adding parts to job cards. This is another place where we have streamlined and simplified our data. When technicians are out on the floor, they're working a particular squawk and they determine that there's a part needed that's going to have to be replaced. They will add the part to the job card using the BOM function, and this is the screen that will come up. And again, we want to point out several features that we've added. Of course, the required fields, disposition, part number, quantity needed. Something that our parts department absolutely has to have is a part need date. What that tells them is, how soon am I going to have to get this ordered? Do I have to order it overnight? Is this first day, when is it needed? So that little part need date is very critical to them. We also added a little feature to remind people that in a date field, if you hit that F4 key, you get a calendar and they can just pick it off the floor so they don't have to key in the date. And again, that's just a little note that was added. Again, it's that customization that you're using on your screens to make it easier for your end users. It'll also note, I created this one so you see requested by, it says Alonda Clinton. Normally, if it's a technician out on the floor, they're going to see that. And when they go to print their part requisitions, that name appears, and the parts department will know which technician needs that. Okay. Once a part has been added, the technician out on the floor is able to see at the time that they add that stock if we have it in stock or not. And Based on what they're seeing, if they know it's in stock, they can immediately print out a pick ticket. And again, pick tickets is another area where we customize. Now, this is only a slight customization. They're not terribly different. The biggest difference, as I pointed out earlier, is the mechanic's name that requested the part. The parts department wants to be able to, when they go to our shelves and they pull that part, they'll page that technician and let him know he can come and pick up his part. And that's how we do it at Epps. Now, if the technician doesn't think the part is in stock and he wants to find out more information, he has to do what's called a parts requisition. This requisition form also prints out in our parts department, but it's in a different area. It's where our buyers are. And when the technician's on the floor and he's requesting a part, he can put notes on the requisition that would let our buyers know any particular information they might need. Maybe they want them to stick to a specific vendor. Maybe they want to get pricing on exchange or outright or new, and so they'd have comparisons to give their customer and let them know. They can put all those notes on the actual BOM and print it out on the requisition for their buyer to see. And at Epps, how we have buyers that are assigned to certain crews, so the crew chiefs and all of their people underneath them, all their technicians underneath them, go to the same buyer, so they get familiar with what vendors they like to use, and that helps, again, streamline our work. But these little notes are critical to the buyers to help them get the right information back to the technicians. And once that information is gathered by the buying department or the purchasing department, they will return this requisition to the technician out on the floor, so that if they need to quote the customer, if it's an exchange, where they want the customer to be able to approve a part that we're going to put on the plane, and they want to know how much it's going to cost them. Everybody wants to know cost. That is how they would convey that information back to the technician. And traditionally, it's either the service manager or the crew chief that'll call the customer and say, okay, it's your alternator, this is what it's going to cost, and let them approve that part before we actually do the purchasing. And once the customer has approved it, this rec comes right back into the parts department, and then the parts department can then go through the process of ordering the part using the purchase order module, which I'm not going to hit today, just to know that that's another area that will be touched. If it's a part that needs to go out for repair, the technician is bringing it to our parts department, the shipping and receiving area, and there's a repair order generated for them, and that part is sent out for repair as well. So those are the 3 different kinds of things that they can do. All right, after a job card is completed, the next step you're going to use is to sign it off. So what's happening? Our technicians are out, they're working, they're doing what is necessary to fix the airplane. Then they'll come back and they will go to a workstation. Like I said, we have several out in our hangars, and they will record what they did, how they did it, and then their job is to sign off this job card. And there's 2 types of sign-offs in Quantum you're probably familiar with. One is the administrative sign-off, and the other is the maintenance sign-off. The maintenance sign-off is the one that the technicians have to be on the repair station to be able to actually do that sign-off. And when they do that, this is a maintenance sign-off, and this is the screening where that is done. And we did not modify the screen hardly at all because we needed most of the information in there, so we left it the way it was. So this is where the technician can review everything about this job card, make sure they got all their parts listed on there, they did record their labor, and once they're happy with it, they can then change it to signed off. Once the work package is signed off, maybe you've got 1 squawk, maybe this is a simple job, maybe it's 3 or 4 squawks on there. The work package can be open anywhere from a couple of hours to several months, depending upon the scale of the work being done on the aircraft that you're working with. But once it's all said and done and all the squawks are signed off, it's now time for somebody to review it and make sure that we're ready to bill, and if we've missed anything, what's wrong with it. So we print what is called a recap. And this allows us to check hours, pricing issues, that sort of thing. Again, here's an area where we definitely customize the form. You see on the left, out of the box from Epps, we don't have things like corrective action, or that's the biggest thing. And part of our review process is to make sure not all technicians type really well or spell words correctly, even though there's spell checker in there. They don't always use it. So this gives us an opportunity to be able to review that information and to make any changes that we see fit that should be done. Now here's where, if the work order has warranty items, we're going to want to know that. On that recap, if it's warranty, there's a word that'll print on there so that whoever's reviewing our recap and our work packages know, oh, this is warranty, and we're going to need to pull warranty off to the aircraft. When we extract warranty, we made one change to our warranty claim area, which is on the header part. And again, I didn't want to get into the warranty module itself to how to create a warranty, but there's a change here that I think is important depending upon how you track your business. We were running into difficulty when you file a warranty claim in Quantum. If you get a portion of it denied, the amount of the claim changes for that which you approve. And we wanted a way to preserve what the original warranty claim amount was. So what we did was added a field, which is this original total claim amount. Now, it is important that whomever's creating the warranty claim key in this information, but it'll stay there no matter what's done in the body of the warranty claim, so that we have a report generated in Crystal Reports that tells us the original amount of the claim as opposed to what we were actually paid. This allows us to be able to check if our warranties, or if we're getting reimbursed for all the warranty work that we're doing, or are we losing money on warranty? Does it make sense to keep doing warranty on this type of aircraft? So that little key piece of information here is just critical to us. Once the work package is reviewed, it's ready to invoice. Now, we at EPS, we use a custom numbering system. And how we do that is twofold. The work package itself is custom numbered. I told you we have 3 divisions. We have piston, turbine, and avionics. Our work packages are structured in such a way as that if you open it up as piston, it will always be labeled P and a number. The number is assigned by Quantum, but it always starts with a P if it's a piston work package, T if it's turbine, A if it's avionics. We decided to take that one step further. We wanted to make sure that our invoices were numbered similarly. Now, this again is kind of a manual process, but in the years that we've been doing it, it's very rare that we make an error. If we do, well, you just have to start over and do it again if you key the number in wrong. But the numbering format that we use is the work page number and -2. If you happen to have to split your invoice to multiple customers, you can use a -3, a -4. Maybe you've got a customer that's got an insurance claim and they want just this one little squawk pulled off to a different invoice. That's why we have the different dashes. I skipped over -1, but I wanted to mention that. I personally use the -1 for, we might want a preliminary, we might want to look and see where we are in the process. A customer might want to know, well, just how much money have I racked up so far? I will do a -1 that just lets me know that this is not a firm invoice, it's just a preliminary, and that we can print it out and go over it with the customer, and that will later be deleted. And a permanent invoice would be, like I said, a -2, a -3, or a -4. Now, once you pull the items over to your work package billing area, this is where if we've made any changes or notes on the recap, this is where those changes would occur. And this is also where we add our consumables charge, our freight charges, taxes, that sort of thing. And what I like to do personally is, part of my job process is to review the profitability of a work package. So I will sort by the type, and I'll get all the parts together, because my experience has been that usually if there's an error on my work package, it's usually parts and pricing. So I will look at that, and I'll verify that our profitability is there. And if it's not, I'm able to quickly go and get the correct information and get that corrected before the customer ever sees the invoice. And that's critical for us. The other area that I'm looking at is across the top in the header area. You can review, again, profitability. Are you getting all your parts? Because you have the cost on the left and then what you're billing out. Cost on the right and what you're billing out on the left. And so this is just a quick look. You can see that, oh, there's something wrong here. I'm not getting enough labor. And it'll allow you to look at it a little bit closer and make any corrections long before the customer ever sees it, so you can make sure it's accurate. Now, once we finish our billing, it's time, of course, to generate an invoice. And this is an area where I think we've really done, for me personally, a good job of customizing a report. And I asked the technician that we have at EPS if he would share the format of this invoice. And I have that information. If anybody needs it, I can upload it to the Q Group forums, and you guys can have access to this form. And the big differences that we did is, number one, seeing the corrective actions, because that's important to the customer. They want to see what has been done. We also subtotal by how much the parts cost, how much miscellaneous charges are on there, any outside repairs. This allows them to see all the stuff subtotal that's in these little gray areas here. And then it isolates consumables, freight, and taxes down at the bottom. The point I want to make here is you don't have to take the forms as they stand. With the Crystal Reports function now, if you've got someone in-house who's really good at Crystal Reports, it's amazing what you can do with it. Now, the one inconvenience of doing a customized Crystal Report like this, I will have to point out, before we started utilizing this form, we would be inside the billing module in this prior screen here, and we could do our global print bill, and the invoice would be printed from there. Now, because we're using this custom form, we have to go into the Quantum Reports area across the top and go down to Crystal Reports and select this custom form. So it's a little bit more inconvenient in terms of the billing department and how we handle things, but the end user, what you get from the end user getting to look at it and being able to understand their invoice better, it was worth that little inconvenience. And maybe we can get component control to be able to add this while we're in the billing module as opposed to having to go and select a special report. Might be an enhancement we could ask them for. Let's see. Oh, yes. Remember I told you I was going to comment back on the warranty and on that work center area on the job card itself and why it's so important. When we code that work center warranty, two things that are really important happen. Number one, it tells the person who's reviewing the bill that there is warranty and that they need to pull a warranty claim. The other thing it does, as you can see, it labels warranty on the invoice to the customer so that they know that there is a warranty claim that's been filed. And why that's important is we print this little comment down at the bottom it says, you have a warranty claim, but bear in mind that if it's denied, we have the right to go back and back bill you. We don't always do that. No, most of the time we don't. But we want the customer to know that there is a potential that if the warranty is denied for whatever reason it might be denied, that we have that. So it prints that little disclaimer. Now, another area is the blank box above it, and I didn't include a sample, and I probably should have. If you have an exchange part on a work package, there's an exchange clause that can print on here that also advises the customer that there's an exchange and there's a core involved. Because a lot of times, as you know, you will send a core back, and it'll be beyond economical repair, and now here's the vendor, back billing us for the value of that core. And so we want to make sure that we, again, had a clause on our invoice so the customer be aware that they may get a bill in the future if something happened with their core, that it was BER, and that we were being charged by our vendor. So that's two areas where customized clauses can help you and convey information and messages to your customers. Now, once an invoice has been generated and we've had it signed off by the service manager, of course, the last step in that process is generation of the general ledger. You do the GQP and it posts it, and then this general ledger batch is created. Now, part of my duties as EPS is before this batch gets posted, I review it for accuracy. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking to make sure that our departments, our account numbers are segmented into 3 segments. And in the service center, again, we talk about those cost centers, turbine, piston, avionics. I want to make sure that the numbers I'm seeing in that 3rd segment tie to that invoice and that we didn't somehow get our wires crossed and pistons getting turbine and vice versa, because they want to know that they're profitable in their own cost center. So part of my job would be to review this general ledger batch, and it will allow you to go in and edit an account number and choose a different account number if you need to. It does have some limitations on that, but for purposes of posting an invoice, it most certainly will allow you to change the general ledger codes. Now, where do you find out more information? Of course, we do have the Q Group website. Can't say enough about that. The forums are amazing. Paul, the most knowledgeable person I know, he's all the time posting on the forums. If you go out there and ask a question, somebody in our users group has probably encountered that problem and can have a workaround for you or a fix. Component Control itself has some, great help videos if there's an area that you want. I find, believe it or not, I think I even shot Component Control. If there's an issue that comes up, one of the first places I go to look is the help file in Quantum itself. And I'll look and see if it's a process I'm not familiar with or I haven't had to do it in a while, or somebody goes, well, I've been thinking about doing this. Go use that little help file on Quantum, because there is valuable information in there. Also, I think earlier in the session they mentioned the release notes. This is a good area to go to find out enhancements that have come out. Maybe you just did an upgrade and you don't know all the features. Go check those release notes. They're very valuable in giving you what's new and improved out there. And of course, there's crystal reports. Quantum going in that direction and going to crystal reports, I wish I knew more about it. I'm very lucky. We at EPS have one member of our staff, our IT guy, is incredible with crystal reports. He also does SQL statements. So I can pick up the phone and go, hey, Greg, can you create this report for me? But not all companies have that luxury. So if you have the opportunity to learn crystal reports, I definitely recommend it. And I'm hoping at some point in time in my career I have the time to do it as well, because it is such a powerful tool, and we use it so much at EPS for so many different things. So the key points I want to make is, again, quantum control is so flexible. So a 2-person company up to a 300-400 person company can use quantum and make it work for them. The idea is that you use as much or as little of it as you want and what makes sense for your company and your workflow. And again, don't be afraid to customize some of those screens. Again, we're blessed. You just guys need to get you a Greg, clone him, I'll send him out. If you have a Greg, he can go in and customize screens, but if you don't, I know Component Control will do that for you. You can say, well, I don't need to see all this. They can hide it for you if that's what you need to do. So again, size doesn't matter. Quantum can handle your business needs, and that includes even the accounting side. And another thing, use crystal reports. The stuff that comes out of Quantum, their CAN reports, they're okay, but there's so many enhancements you can make, because Quantum is very good at capturing information, and it's in the database. It's there. All you have to do is be able to pull it out. So if you're not a Crystal Reports user, find someone who is. Help them. Get them to help you with these customized reports. I can't say how important that is and how much it's helped our business. Now, if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Whoop, there's one. Mm-hmm.
How long do they survive upgrades to different versions of Quantum?
Pretty well. I know Greg, our IT guy, has a couple of issues sometimes, especially if he's customized a field where he's pulling information from a location. He might have to go in and tweak them, but my experience has been it's pretty smooth transition. Very rarely does it not work. And what he's done is applied it as a theme. So, and if he's having issues or it causes a problem, he'll just remove the theme off the work, and we can work in it as it comes out of the box until he fixes it, but very smooth. Rarely do we have an issue with that.
Did everybody hear that question? Okay.
Another question?
Pam Prince from AvMax. It's follow-up, actually. So earlier you talked about Screen Editor, but with that comment about themes, that means you're using Screen Designer, no?
And it may have been a misnomer for me. It's Designer, not Editor. My apologies. It is the Screen Designer.
So have you guys used Screen Editor yet?
I'm sure he uses both, but Designer, I think, more than the Editor.
Okay.
I believe if I understand how that works, the Editor is more for changing like field names themselves. Isn't that more where that's...
A note about that: we have the Screen Designer, and the Screen Designer allows you to embed code as well as field, bring in new fields, hide fields, things like that. Component Control, from my understanding, you'll need to verify this with them. I believe that that's no longer available, but it's been replaced with the Screen Editor, which is sort of a simpler version of this functionality. The majority of what people are doing is hiding and showing fields and relabeling things and stuff like that. So it works pretty well for 90% of the needs out there. Any other questions?
Get another one there.
Good morning. I'm Rick Breitenbach with Pillball. I have a question regarding implementation of your Quantum. As we continue to get new employees and as companies grow, how do you train to your specific Quantum? How do you set that up so that your technicians use it correctly?
What I have done is typically, for some reason, we seem to hire in batches. I don't know, there'll be like 2 or 3 technicians that come on at once, so that works out well for me. And what I'll do is I'll set up what's called a mini training session. And what it does, it usually takes about an hour. And I'll sit down. We have a conference room. We've got a screen like this, and I'll have Quantum up. And I will go over the very specific Quantum items that relate to their job and help them get it done. They don't need to know how the accounting portion works or anything else works. We specifically address the duties of their job, how they're going to add parts to a job card, how to enter the corrective actions, how to enter their time manually, how to scan. And I go over all of that with them. And if they have any questions, I'm actually, my office is located in one of the hangars right outside the hangar floor, so they can pop in and ask me a question. I'll be walking through the hangar and I go, can you help me with that? And so it's kind of an ongoing process, but the focus is when a new employee comes on, whatever that employee's function is, we will have it's a little mini session. I've been doing them so long I can do them in my sleep. And I just go over each item with them that's pertinent to their job. And then as they use Quantum, they get better at looking, going, oh, I can do this too. And so they learn on their own because it's very user-friendly.
I'd like to add to that. So what Worthington does is we document our processes, and then we create job aids around those processes. But I also use an application called Blueberry. It's about a $200, $250 application. You can get, I think it's up to 3 licenses. Really, really simple to use, and it allows you to record whatever's happening on your computer. Has a great little editing interface, and if you have a webcam, you can even display yourself up in the corner as the instructor. So what we do is I actually make little training videos for very specific functions. I did one not too long ago for how to create a rental lease transaction, and then that's saved on a shared drive in a central repository for anybody in the company to access. So a lot of it is a matter of defining those processes, creating the job aids, and that might be printed or written type of instructions, or it could be a training video with something like a Blueberry type application.
Paul, you just saved me hours. I'm going to create some of those Blueberry things. That'd be good for me. Because I do tend to kind of gets redundant. If it's like 2 or 3 weeks have gone by and we get a new technician, I'm finding I'm doing that again.
And Blueberry is so simple. Anybody can use it. I mean, you just start it up, click the button, and do the function in Quantum, and it records everything, and you can put in text and overlay stuff. It's a great, great training tool. It also helps me communicate issues back to component control to replicate the problem. So I don't have to spend my time on the phone. I just send them a video of what the problem is.
Oh, I never even thought about using it that way. Is there any other questions?
I have one, but anybody else? So I'm curious. Worthington had a heavy maintenance shop for a while, and we used the work package. How do you handle, you get an aircraft in the hangar, and you've got non-routines that show up as the work is progressing. How do you handle identifying not only that they're non-routines outside of the original scope, but then getting the customer's approval to get that repair done and or denial? So then reflecting that back into the work package so that your technicians know this one wasn't approved, but this one was.
It's not as automated as I think it should be or could be. EPS being around for 50 years, and a lot of our technicians are old school, and getting them to use computers and that type of thing has been a work in progress in itself. The younger guys, they're great, they do it, and the older ones don't really like to. So part of that process is a bit manual. As our crew chiefs, it's kind of their job. They have the original scope, and then when these new squawks come up, they will bring it to the service manager's attention. The service manager then contacts the customer, lets them know about these additional issues. They do that like say it's a 50-hour inspection. They go through the whole inspection, they get all the additional squawks that are noted, and then they call the customer and go, okay, these are the items that have come up. Some of these are airworthy, some are not, and then they discuss it with the customer. If there's parts involved, we have to take a little bit of time again to get quotes for parts and make sure that the customer knows what this is going to cost them in the long run. So it's a little bit of a manual process, but once that's they've talked to the customer and get it approved, then our service manager will then return it to the crew chief and tell them it's okay to do jobs A, B, and C. And they might just print out an individual job card because it's an additional one that's been added, so they can scan off that job and make those notes. So that's how we do it.
Hold on.
Spinning. Pirouette. Yeah.
I just want to make sure we get it.
All right.
He lets other people hear your question, too.
Sure. Curtis Hudson with RLC out of Broussard. How, when the work package is concluded, do you guys how do you make the final logbook entry? do you print it off, or do you have a manual logbook? What's your process?
That's a good question, and it's an area where I have not a lot of experience, but I know we have a separate logbook software system that we use. We are not using the one that allows you to generate it from Quantum. But what our technicians do is that corrective action is almost word for word what they're going to put on the logbook entry. So a lot of them will do the old cut and paste over to the logbook. And then our logbook, it saves it. We have a logbook library, so all the entries are saved. So if we ever need one, or if a customer for some reason didn't get their logbook entry, we're able to reproduce it. And so it is a little separate module that works outside of Quantum.
Does the final logbook entry, is the technician physically signing his name and A&P number, or do you have some sort of an electronic entry?
It is, his number is on there, but he has to physically sign it. And then we make a copy and keep that with our work package in a folder that gets filed. So if it's ever reviewed, we see that there was a signed copy. But no, it's an original signature. And it's on a little pre-printed sticky about that big, and so that they can put it right into the logbook. Yeah, a little bitty sticky, it's about like this. So, again, I'm definitely not a technician, so that I'm not talking the technical babble there.
Well, Marineusa from Embraer Executive Jets in Le Bourget, France. It's just going to your question. I'd like to share how we do there for non-routines. We have the non-routines created in Quantum as they are shown, and the planning guys, they have a report that shows all the non-routines that should be approved by the customer, and on top of that, each non-routine has the status to be approved. So the commercial department goes to all tasks that has this status to be approved, and they provide the approval, and they approve in Quantum. They show that it's approved through a quotation that goes to the customer and automatically change the status. Or in the work package, they do manually for the tasks that are approved. So in the hangar floor, they automatically know which ones are approved every day. So this is the way we do.
That's actually how we used to do it as well. So you use the status code on the task, same as what we did, and then we created a crystal report, and our customer had to sign off on each non-routine that they were going to be approving or denying, and underneath that non-routine would list the parts that were required for the job. But here's what I haven't heard yet. On the non-routines, we wouldn't print them out. What we had was a 3-part form, and when the mechanic would fill out the non-routine, he would put all the information on there. One copy would go to the customer for their hard copies and records. Another copy might go to purchasing, another goes to production, where that information gets entered into the work order. Now, after it's approved, we won't reprint the traveler or that card. What we did is we created to Alanda's point, the customizable ability of Quantum. We took a traveler document and created a barcode label for it. So then that non-routine that's been written up by the mechanic just gets a barcode label slapped right on it, and then we issue that back out to the floor. That pre-printed non-routine form has a number already assigned to it, which we transpose into the non-routine task in the work order. So there's that marriage between the paper copy and your digital copy, and then you're not printing all kinds of information over and over. You're just printing that barcode label so that you have that ability to scan labor and parts and things like that against it. So that's how we used it. The reason I asked the question was because I know that that's oftentimes a challenge for a lot of companies, and I was just curious how it was being handled. So just some ideas there. Any other questions?
I'm Bob Frazier with Frazier Aviation. We have a double whammy. We're in the manufacturing business and also have overhaul and repair. We've been using the barcode, scanning in and scanning out, but we've not used the accounting system because of the labor hours, and the quality has to be on the floor and off the floor. Do you assign each one of your workers then have an hourly wage, and then is your manufacturing overhead applied to that? Is that how your accounting system works?
Yeah, each technician has a burden rate that's specific to that technician, and how ours is done is the technicians basically have the same burden rate, and then there's an additional one if they're working overtime or time and a half, like they've been called in after hours to do that type of work, and it is linked to the burden rate so that we're able to capture the cost. I think if that's answering your question.
No, it is. But then it is a supervisor, and only the supervisor or manager have access to that information.
Correct.
Let's say the technician's gone over an hour than he's supposed to do. You know, our quality would enter the floor, and I can't charge quality time because it's part of our G&A anyway. So
Right.
we're looking at any interruptions. You know, like you mentioned, the guy leaves and doesn't come back. Or he leaves for lunch and forgets to clock out.
And he forgets to scan off.
So
and
somebody has to look at all that information.
That is kind of the service managers, each service center's manager, he's kind of looking at that, and they can use the dashboards. There's a couple of different, there's another function.
Labor
in Quantum
reconciliation.
There. That's another area that you can look at it. Also, part of our process when we print out the recap and we're reviewing, we'll look, I mean, we know what's usual and customary for a particular routine, and if we see extraordinary areas, we go, ooh, somebody missed scanning out. So we seem to do it a lot on the weekends. We'll get this labor, there's like 75 hours of labor on a normal squawk, and we know that we'll need to go in and edit it, and so that's kind of done on a manual basis. But there's a lot of different things ongoing that you can do, and a lot of technicians themselves will come in and say, I forgot to scan out when I left for lunch, there's too much time, and they'll do it right then and do it real time and get it corrected. And I think there was a question in the back there. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Joyce Cornett with RLC. When you're creating the different job cards, we actually had a big session on Tuesday with Stephen Sullivan, and we were talking about the standardization as well as the unexpected maintenance that transpires during the discovery of the breakdown. One of the things that they had talked about doing is making standard templates that will help expedite the job stream as well. When you create, say, one that's just called non-routine, can you constantly change the description of that non-routine so that you can actually run a report of how much non-routine is happening on an aircraft?
Paul, I'm going to defer to you on that one because that's not a function that...
Yeah, what we did is we have just a task called non-routine, and then as you're entering it, you're elaborating on what the non-routine was about, and then what we do is we'll review those predominantly for just keyword searches and things like that to see if there's things that we need that are occurring more and more frequently, and then we add that to our master template. And at our MRO shop down in Tulsa, we actually have a checklist so we have an initial, we call it an inspection traveler that prints out right out of the template, and that's our check-off inspection to see if certain conditions exist or not. But that's exactly how we do it. Exactly, trending and tracking purposes, yes. Yep. Yep. Correct, looking for the trends. Any other questions? I think we got about 2 minutes.
Yep, just about.
All right. Well, I want to mention one thing. Alonda really gave a great example of what I think you're going to find a theme going on this year's conference. And that's how you can use quantum, but it's how you set up the data in quantum that's going to help drive a lot of the positive output. She gave an example of the numbering logs and identifying that information and separating those different types of transactions. And you'll see that in one of my lectures this afternoon. So it's not just necessarily about how quantum is being used. It's thinking through the data that you're putting into the system and how it's going to impact the output. So I thought that was a really great example and well thought out. So, Alonda Clinton.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.